I'm very pleased to tell you I have in the studio with me now a special guest. I'm meeting this lady for the first time myself. This is Chilli Kippen. Good morning, Chilli.
Good morning, Michael.
Thanks for coming in this morning, Chilli. I'm really fascinated by what you are up to. First of all, I told my listeners earlier this morning that, in fact, you have an extensive background in journalism and film, but you've recently published a book called "The Captain Loves Caviar."
That is right. Yes.
Let's just start with a general question about the book. Is this your first one to write? Is this your first novel?
It is my first novel.
All right. So previously you were a journalist.
I was a journalist for many years. Then I decided I would try my hand at film, and I did a postgrad course in writing for screen. I've written a couple of screenplays that, of course, don't go very far. They were optioned, but they've never been made. But eventually went into documentary film.
You did documentary films as well.
Documentary films. Yes.
And you originally started though in journalism.
Yes.
Major newspapers in Australia.
Magazines. I actually had a rather an interesting career in magazines. I worked for Vogue.
Oh, right.
And I was the Melbourne editor of Vogue Living for a period of time.
Wow, that's a high-profile position.
Well, it was an interesting position. It was very, as we know, very elitist, and the articles were very elitist, and the girls had to look. We all had to look very smart and
Vogue-ish.
Vogue-ish. And after a few years with Vogue, I then changed to a magazine called Family Circle magazine, which was at the other end of the spectrum.
Yes,
completely.
indeed.
And had to start writing to mums and about food and lifestyles and a different sort of fashion completely. And I ended up being the associate editor of that magazine. So I was
of Circle, Family Circle.
Family Circle. That was owned then by the New York Times.
Right, that's a huge publication. I mean, huge circulation.
Well, it was at that time. I think now it's sort of been taken over, bought from the New York Times, and is locally owned. I don't know who owns it now.
So how many years were you doing in magazines then?
Oh God, I don't know, about 15 years.
Oh,
I think.
Really?
More probably, because I did freelance, and I wrote for individual submission articles to Australian Penthouse.
Oh yeah.
Which is another sort of writing.
It's all right. An old friend of mine was the Penthouse forum lady for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yes, indeed. Wrote some great articles.
The great articles. Well, I did the 4,000-word interviews for them.
Right.
And then I worked for an Italian magazine. And then I went to America for a brief time, and I worked for the Hollywood Reporter.
Very, very interesting journalistic career.
Well, you know.
So you were in L.A. for a while then?
Yes, I was in L.A. for a year.
Right.
At that stage, I thought I could also become a screenwriter.
Oh, this is when you made the transition into film, huh?
Yes. But I ended up, of course, falling back on my journalistic experience and getting a job with a reporter, which was very interesting. And, and that's it, really.
And so the screenplays then that you wrote while you were in L.A. or before you got to L.A.? And
I got the taste for it in LA,
all right.
and I actually worked with a couple of very experienced screenwriters. Please don't ask me his name because it's gone right out of my head, but he had a long history of screenwriting, and he and another woman and myself spent about 6 months working on a screenplay over there. We were sort of gleaning his experience, taking from him and his experience. Again, it sat in some agent's bottom drawer, never ever got made, but the experience was there.
And that, of course, whet your appetite or set you into writing for a journal. I mean a novel. So this was your next...
Well, I think maybe I did what a lot of frustrated screenwriters end up doing.
Writing the novel.
Writing the novel and thinking, oh, well, with a bit of luck, someone's going to pick this up.
And then I'll write the screenplay based on my own book.
I think that a lot of screenwriters end up doing that because it's such a hard road to embark upon.
Okay, and this is the your maiden voyage into novels, and this is called "The Captain Loves Caviar." How long have you been working on this then?
Look, I haven't been. I'd say it took a couple of years.
Right.
not solidly writing because it's not a tome of a book, as you can see, Michael. But it was an off and on work.
Right.
And then there were the rewrites and the edits.
But it's published now, and you were kind enough to bring me a copy, and with the cover notes, I can hardly wait to get home and get stuck into this thing. Just the little blurbs that I have read reminds me so much of an American writer who is absolutely my favorite writer, and that's Tom Robbins.
And mine too, actually.
Well, Tom Robbins is also your...
Yes, indeed.
And would I be right in thinking that perhaps there are some similar stylistic...
I hope so. I hope that you think so after you've read it. Yes, maybe my rather bizarre sense of humour might resemble his.
Well, I was going to say Tom Robbins has not only a bizarre sense of humour, he has a bizarre... his stories always have some kind of bizarre element to them, but that's why he's such a great writer and very, very, very funny. Yes. So I'm looking forward to this. Now, tell me a bit about the book. How can people get it? How are you going about distributing this?
Well, it's being distributed through Beaglia Books in Australia. It was published in the UK by Matador. It's available in Australia through major bookstores. Dymocks have it. I don't know if they're in Queensland, but I know that they're throughout Victoria. I'm doing an actual signing on Monday morning next at between 10 and 11 at the Whileaway bookstore. I'll be signing copies for people who are interested in buying a copy. And
this coming Monday?
This coming Monday, the 29th at Whileaway between 10 and 11:30. And otherwise, it's available on ebook through Amazon and all the other online stores, or the Book Depository if you felt like, just ordering a copy, and I don't believe they charge any shipping costs, so they're pretty reasonable. Probably pretty much what it sells for here, which is about $24.99, I think.
Right. Well,
it's very readily available.
Well, I am really looking forward to getting stuck into this. So do you live here now in Port Douglas,
Well,
Chilli?
for the last 20 years, we've had a house here.
Oh, really?
My husband and I, yes. It started off that we came to whatever time we had, we would spend up here. But, of course, now my husband's sort of not working as hard as he used to, and we can spend more time. So we're usually about 3 or 4 months up here, and most of my writing is now done here.
Is that right? Okay. So have you got another one in the works?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, and I am actually, because I've fallen in love with some of these characters, I really can't let them go. And in fact, I dream about them, and I think this morning I woke up laughing because one of them had done something quite bizarre and ridiculous, and I thought, that's got to go.
Got to get that down on paper right now.
So, yeah, there is a sequel, but not all the characters will be in it, just a couple of the major characters. Right. And again, it will take place on board a cruise ship because this novel takes place on board a 5-star cruise ship.
This one, the captain.
Yes, the captain loves caviar.
Captain loves caviar.
And I've found that locking my characters into a confined space gives me lots of ability to manoeuvre them and get them to do outrageous things.
Oh, fantastic! Great stuff, Chilli. I can't wait to get started on this. Now, you mentioned in a note you sent to me a couple of weeks ago when we first started to chat that you were just up and you were in Cairns just recently for a workshop.
Yes, it was actually for the Cairns Tropical Writers Festival.
Oh, right, okay.
Which I really hadn't been terribly much aware of it before, but it's a very well-run festival, and I was very fortunate in that they requested me to be on 2 panels. One was to discuss what it's like to have the lure of fiction, so that if you're a non-fiction writer, what causes the transition from non-fiction to fiction, and there were 3 other authors on the same panel, and we all discussed what it was that had caused us to do this. And the panel on the following day was a discussion reviewing 3 major publications that had come out over the past couple of years and sort of analysing them and looking into them. So it was a very, very interesting festival.
Right. Well, a good friend of mine had participated in that festival for many years. I'm not sure if he still is or not. That's Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman, who lives here in Port Douglas, has written, I think, about 3 novels now at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. They're available online anyway, but I can't. Don't ask me for the names at this point because I can't. But he was always involved with the Tropical Writers Festival down in Cairns. So,
I'm not good with names, and I might have had the pleasure of meeting him there, but in all honesty, I can't remember many. There were a lot of people there. It was a very busy festival.
Well, you can certainly meet Paul down in front of the Courthouse Hotel most afternoons for around 5 p.m.
So, really?
Oh, yes. He holds court there.
Does he indeed?
No pun intended.
I'll have to go down there and introduce myself.
All right, Chilli. Look, thank you very much for coming in. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into your book, and I'll certainly, I'm happy to give you some feedback. And if it moves in the direction of Tom Robbins, it's got to be a good read.
Well, I do hope that the people from Port Douglas go to While Away and meet me. I'd like to meet them.
All right, that's Monday morning. It's this coming Monday. Unfortunately, we have that construction going on in the background again, so we're going to probably wind this up right now. Monday morning between
10 and 11:30.
Between 10 and 11:30 at While Away to sign book signing and a chance to buy this book, The Captain Loves Caviar by Chilli Kippen. Thanks for coming in, Chilli.
Thank you.
See you.